everybody, it's 21 News Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm. This video is all about tornadoes, a subject of intense interest for weather enthusiasts, weather hobbyists, and professional meteorologists. The science of tornado detection is actually relatively young. It's only in the last 20 years or so that we've really gotten a good handle on why tornadoes form and how they form, and the best ways to keep the general public safe. So yeah, this is all about tornadoes, and the first thing we'll talk about is how a tornado forms. It's a pretty complex procedure that the atmosphere goes through to produce a tornado. Well, first of all, you need a thunderstorm, of course, but the most important things when it comes to tornado formation are the winds, specifically what direction are the winds blowing, both down here at the ground and upstairs in the atmosphere. If there's a big difference in the wind direction or the wind speed, or both, between where we live down at the ground and up several thousand feet in the atmosphere, you can start to get a rotating column of air kind of in the horizontal. Well, that doesn't produce a tornado. It's when you have this wind shear, as we call it, and then a thunderstorm comes along and you see air parcels rising, unstable air rising through the atmosphere, and that can tilt that horizontal rotation into the vertical. When you get that vertically rotating column of air, then that starts to become rather interesting, and you have the possibility of a funnel cloud forming. A funnel cloud is a cloud that oftentimes forms out of what we call a wall cloud. A lot of different types of clouds, but a wall cloud is kind of a lowering of that cloud base. And if it lowers even further, a lot of times we refer to that as a funnel cloud. And if that funnel cloud extends all the way down and makes contact with the ground, then it's officially a tornado. If it stays aloft, then it's a funnel cloud. Of course, we like them to stay aloft, but when those horizontal, or I should say vertical, rotating columns of air reach the ground, then it is a tornado. Here in the state of Ohio, we average about 19 or 20 tornadoes per year. There's a large variety though. Last year we had an enormous amount of tornadic activity across the state of Ohio, especially during the month of May. But as an average, 19 or 20, resulting in an average of about 83 injuries and a handful of fatalities. Again, those numbers are averages. Some years quite a bit lower, some years the numbers are quite a bit higher. In our region specifically, of course, tornadoes are no stranger to our area. Some areas appear to be a little more prone to tornadic activity than others. A few hot spots in our area include parts of western Mahoning County, parts of the southern tier of Trumbull and Mercer counties, and then you notice in parts of Columbiana County not a lot of activity in the last 60 years or so. There's no specific reason we can point to why some areas are a little more prone to tornadoes than others. Sometimes it's just kind of luck of the draw, and there's very few geographical obstacles in our area to prevent tornadoes. And even in areas where we have a river or some hills, tornadoes don't avoid those things. That's one of the common misconceptions with tornadoes. They can form just about anywhere except for maybe the highest mountains out in the Rocky Mountain states. All right, we rate tornadoes based on their wind speed and the damage that they do. This is called the Enhanced Fujita Scale. It's named after a famous meteorologist and scientist named Fujita, and this breaks down the wind speeds in a tornado into 6 different categories, ranging from EF0 to EF5. Now, EF5 tornadoes around here are extremely rare. Only a few have been recorded, most recently back in 1985 in the famous May 31st, 1985 event for our region, but they're extremely rare. When we have tornadoes around here, they typically are towards the lower end. EF0, EF1s are much more common than EF2s and higher. Those become increasingly rare as you go down this list. EF0s and EF1s much more common, with winds between 65 and 110 miles per hour. EF0s typically result in fairly minor damage. It's typically some tree damage, some shingles can be blown off, damage to gutters and to siding, Some shallow-rooted trees that don't have real deep roots in the ground, they can be uprooted by an EF0. Once you get down to EF1, then you can start talking about more significant damage, including widespread roof damage. There can be some windows broken, and mobile homes can be overturned. We never want anyone to shelter in a mobile home during any sort of tornado threat. Once you get up to EF2 and higher, then you can get really, really bad damage. That means even well-constructed homes can withstand, can take on some significant damage. Thankfully, again, those become a little more rare once you get up into EF2 and higher range. All right, some tornado terminology. When you see a TV weather presenter, a meteorologist talking about a tornado watch, that means conditions are favorable for the formation of tornadoes. But when things get serious is when there's a tornado warning issued. A tornado warning is issued either when a tornado on the ground has been spotted, or, as is more often the case, radar has picked up enough rotation that there might be a tornado being produced by a thunderstorm. That's when a tornado warning is issued by the National Weather Service, and then on the TV side of the weather enterprise, we communicate that to you via television, via social media, and online streams. Something we almost never see around here is what's called a tornado emergency, and this is kind of a step above a routine tornado warning. A tornado emergency is issued when for sure there's a tornado on the ground. It's probably a very strong one, and it could be impacting a heavily populated area. A lot of times you see tornado emergencies issued for strong tornadoes that may be impacting a fairly large city. Something that we've never had, that product has never been issued around here, thankfully, but it's something you see a handful of times a year in more tornado-prone areas across the middle of the country and down in the south. Another way I like looking at the difference between a watch and a warning, whether it be a tornado watch or a warning, a flood watch warning, severe thunderstorm watch or warning. Yeah, a watch tends to be, hey, heads up, there could be trouble, but a warning means the trouble is here and it's time to take action. The Wicked Witch is coming. All right, as we go through the late spring and into summer, this gets to be our prime tornado season in Ohio and western Pennsylvania. Now, during the month of May, the most frequent tornadoes are out across what we traditionally call Tornado Alley. It's the middle of the country. It's the plain states. It's real flat. And Gulf of Mexico moisture streams in and interacts with cooler, drier air coming off the Rocky Mountains, and you see a lot of tornadic activity in May in places such as Oklahoma and Kansas, parts of Nebraska, Iowa. But you'll notice there's a little uptick in activity that extends into western Ohio in May. Now, tornadoes can occur at any time of the year, but they become more and more frequent, of course, as we head into spring, and in eastern Ohio and western PA, especially as we go into early summer, the months of June and July. Those tend to be the 2 months that we have the most frequent tornadic activity in the eastern half of Ohio and the western half of PA. That tornado risk also starts moving farther north up into the northern part of the U.S. and even into parts of southern Canada. They can have tornadic activity during the summer months. All right, when it comes to weather, there's a lot of myths in the weather department, and especially when it comes to tornadoes, there's a lot of myths, old wives' tales that we really want you to avoid. One of those is that you should, when a tornado threatens, you should crack the windows to equalize the pressure between the inside of your house and the outside. This is absolutely not something you should do. It accomplishes nothing. All it really does is let the wind in, and you don't want to do that. So don't crack your windows. Some people believe, as I mentioned a moment ago, that tornadoes don't come around their area because of a river or a hill nearby, or they might live in a city, and they think that tornadoes typically don't come to cities. That's not true. Tornadoes hit cities all the time. So a lot of myths that we want you to avoid, and the last one I have on this list is that you should go to the southwest corner of your home. Don't worry about the direction. We just want you to get to the best place in your home, and that would be a basement. And if you don't have a basement, then an interior room. And most importantly, we want you to get away from the windows. Here's kind of a schematic of a house, and the green areas, that's where we want you to be. The middle of your house, putting as many walls between you and the outside as possible, or I should say, of course, a basement. And even if your basement has windows, typically they're pretty small, And the fact that you're low is the most important thing, even if there's a couple of small windows in your basement. We don't want you to be in the attic. We don't want you to be on the third floor of your house. We don't want you to be near windows. Now, what if you live in an apartment building? Well, it's a good idea to make friends with someone on the lowest floor of that apartment building. Bake them a cake, bake them some brownies, become their friend, and so when weather threatens, they can bring you in. So if you live on the 5th floor of an apartment building, make friends with someone that lives lower than you, especially down on the bottom floor. All right, one of the frustrations we have as we get into severe weather and tornado season is people's reliance on outdated warning technology, and specifically we're talking about tornado sirens. Tornado sirens were developed 80 years ago. This is basically World War II technology. They are designed to warn people who are outdoors. They are not designed to be heard indoors. We hear all the time whenever there's a tornado or just even a tornado warning, we hear all the time, well, I didn't hear a siren. Or people on the other side of the coin say, I heard sirens, but there was no tornado warning. Why was that? Tornado sirens, they're outdated. They are activated differently in different municipalities. Some municipalities will activate those sirens if there's a severe thunderstorm warning, not a tornado warning. Some tornado warning sirens have been broken for years and need some maintenance. Tornado warnings are issued by parts of counties. Now, entire counties are very rarely put under a tornado warning, so only parts of counties are put under a warning, but you'll hear all the time that sirens will be activated in parts of the county that aren't in the warning. And that gives, leads people to maybe not take warnings seriously. I heard a siren, but every time I hear a siren, nothing happens. So we don't want people to think like that. And typically, again, they're not supposed to be heard indoors, and typically even outdoors, they can only be heard within a mile or two of the siren location. So sirens have a very limited function in this day and age. We want you to rely mostly on your smartphone, even if you don't have a smartphone. And most people do these days, but even if you don't have a smartphone, then weather radios are a great option. They're very inexpensive, easy to program, and extremely reliable. If you can't be near your TV when we're doing tornado coverage on TV, more often than not, we're also doing that coverage on social media, Facebook, YouTube, our weather app, wfmj.com/weather. Take your smart device with you as you shelter in a closet or in your basement and stay apprised as to what's going on that way. But do not rely on tornado sirens as your first way and only way of getting severe weather information. I hope you found this video enjoyable and informative, everyone. Stay safe this severe weather season. And again, count on us to keep you updated if severe weather threatens our area.